Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have two episodes for you this morning. This is the first of the two, and there are three articles in this episode. The URLs are listed in the description of the video for your convenience. The first article is off of algemeener.com, and it says how John Kerry secretly lobbied to get CAIR or CAIR removed from UAE's terrorist organization list. On November the 16th of 2014, the United Arab Emirates, or the UAE, took the unusual step of designating the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, and the Muslim American Society, MAS, as terrorist organizations. They were among 83 groups named for their connections to the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. This outraged CAIR officials, who immediately began efforts to get their organization removed from the list. They found a powerful ally in Secretary of State John Kerry, who authorized State Department officials to meet regularly with the UAE officials to lobby on behalf of CAIR and MAS. CAIR already had a sympathetic ear in the Obama administration, including the State Department, which had openly embraced and legitimized the entire spectrum of radical Islamist groups, falsely posing as religious or civil rights groups, which both CAIR and MAS had done. At a daily State Department press briefing 2 days after the UAE released its list, a spokesman said that the State Department did not consider CAIR or MAS to be terrorist groups, but that it was seeking more information from UAE about their decision. The official added that as part of our routine engagement with a broad spectrum of faith-based organizations, a range of U.S. government officials have met with officials of CAIR and MAS. We at the State Department regularly meet with a wide range of faith-based groups to hear their views, even if some of their views expressed at times are controversial. In making that admission, the State Department officials effectively affirmed that the Obama administration policy of embracing radical Islamist groups under the euphemism of calling them faith-based groups. The UAE had good reason to designate CAIR as a terrorist organization. For instance, records obtained by the FBI indicate that CAIR was created as a front group for a Hamas support network. While CAIR bills itself as the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization, the reality is quite different. Before helping launch CAIR, Executive Director Nahad Awad worked as Public Relations Director for the Islamic Association for Palestine, IAP, the Hamas propaganda arm in the United States. A 2001 Immigration and Naturalization Service memo documented the IAP's support for Hamas and found that the facts strongly suggest that the IAP was part of Hamas's propaganda apparatus. IAP was part of the Palestine Committee, created by the Muslim Brotherhood to support Hamas politically and financially. CAIR was added to the Palestine Committee's roster just after its 1994 creation. In 2008, the FBI cut off official contact with CAIR, citing evidence from the Holy Land Foundation terror funding trial, which documented the connection between CAIR and its founders to Hamas. In a letter to Senator John Kyle, the FBI explained, "Until we, the FBI, can resolve whether there continues to be connection between CAIR or its executives and Hamas, the FBI does not view CAIR as an appropriate liaison partner." During a 2003 Senate hearing, Senator Charles Schumer, Democrat of New York, said that CAIR is known to have ties. In 2009 correspondence with the FBI, he wrote that cutting off contact with the Islamist group should be government-wide policy. CAIR and its representatives, meanwhile, often espouse radical ideology and propagate the jihadist narrative that the United States is waging a war on Islam, Awad repeated that message as recently as September of 2016 when he denounced legislation allowing the families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia. CAIR officials also often side with Hamas and other Palestinian terrorists. CAIR New York board member Lamas Deek, an attorney, tweeted during the 2012 war between Israel and Hamas that Gaza is a beacon of resistance, exposes shackles, awakens dignity, inspires revolution, reaffirms our oneness, the reason Israel won't last. During a 2009 fundraiser for an effort to break Israel's embargo against the Hamas government in Gaza, Deek explained that Palestinian support for Hamas is a choice for one united Palestinian state on all of 1948 territories from the north to the very south. That was what Palestinians chose. And in supporting Palestinian choice, we are saying we support their right to liberation from violent colonialism. Just days before UAE's 2014 designation of CAIR as a terrorist group, the organization's San Francisco chapter bestowed its Promoting Justice Award to Sami al-Arun and his family. Al-Arun secretly ran for an American Support Network for the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ, terrorist group in the late 1980s and early 1990s. PIJ was responsible for terrorist attacks that killed dozens of Israelis and several Americans. Al-Arun pled guilty to conspiring to provide goods or services to the PIJ. His plea agreement included an admission that he was associated with PIJ. U.S. District Judge James Moody went further in sentencing Al-Arun. The evidence was clear in the case that you were a leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Moody said. You were on the board of directors and an officer. The secretary, directors control the actions of an organization, even the PIJ, and you were an active leader, he said. Since 2001, 6 CAIR officials have been convicted of terror-related charges. A longtime national board member was deported in part because of his Hamas support. Yet, despite the massive evidence linking CAIR to Hamas and other terror groups, the Obama administration repeatedly invited CAIR officials and other radical Islamist groups to the White House. In December of 2014, CAIR met with top officials of the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Justice Department, asking them to pressure the UAE to remove them from the list, according to reliable sources intimately familiar with the communications. On December the 22nd of 2014, CAIR issued a press release asserting that the two American Muslim organizations and the U.S. government pledged to work together to achieve a positive solution to the UAE's designations. In response to a letter sent by CAIR Executive Director Nahad Awad to Secretary Kerry protesting the UAE's designation, Kerry responded on May the 5th of 2015 in a letter to Awad stating, "Let me reiterate, first, that the U.S. government clearly does not consider CAIR to be a terrorist organization. As your letter noted, the Department of State rejected this allegation immediately after the UAE's designations were announced in November, and we will continue to do so. U.S. officials have raised the issue of CAIR's inclusion on the UAE's terror list with the UAE officials on multiple occasions." That portion of the letter now appears on CAIR's website, but at the time that the letter was sent to CAIR, according to knowledgeable sources, there was an agreement between CAIR and the State Department to keep the letter secret. An excerpt from it was posted on CAIR's website only in May of 2016, a year after it was received. The IPT has learned that Kerry and the CAIR agreed to keep the letter secret so as to protect Kerry from public embarrassment. In light of CAIR's numerous ties to Hamas and other unsavory aspects of its record, Kerry had good reason to believe that the letter could cause a public relations disaster for him. Whatever influence the State Department exerted on the UAE did not work. there has been no indication that CAIR and MAS were removed from the Gulf states terror list. When the UAE's list was published, CAIR realized that it was going to be a public relations disaster for them as well. So they published a frequently asked question list attacking the UAE as a politically authoritarian regime. The organization seemed more comfortable with this authoritarian regime in 2006 when Awad and CAIR spokesman Ibram Hooper led a delegation on a fundraising trip to the UAE. State Department State Department cables show that the delegation, led by the public relations firm Hill and Knowlton, sought millions of dollars from the UAE donors. Cables obtained from the IPT through the Freedom of Information Act show that CAIR's officials met with the top UAE leaders and attended an evening reception in honor of the CAIR group, hosted by a top presidential advisor. The cable also noted that UAE press has reported that Sheikh Hamadan Al Muktoum, deputy ruler of Dubai and UAE Minister of Finances and Industry, has endorsed a proposal to build a property in the U.S. to serve as an endowment for CAIR. The cable added that CAIR had already received substantial contributions from several wealthy UAE donors, including one who had already given CAIR $1 million. The Muslim American Society, meanwhile, has its own lengthy record of defending accused terrorists and terrorist supporters. It was formed as the Muslim Brotherhood overt arm in the United States. Co-founder Abdurrahman al-Mawadi, who pled guilty in 2004 to engaging in illegal transactions with Libya and facilitating a Libyan plot to assassinate then Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah, testified in 2012 that MAS's connection with the Brotherhood cannot be disputed. This sordid episode of going to bat for Hamas support organization is emblematic of the larger problem of the Obama administration's inability to pinpoint the heart of the impasse between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Unceasing Palestinian terrorism, continued Palestinian subsidies paid to terrorist families, incendiary glorification of terrorists who kill Jews, and massive anti-Semitic incitement in Palestinian schools and media. The outgoing Secretary of State recently crowed in the New York Times about what he got right. The episode is a stark example of what he got wrong. So there you have the story of Kerry. The next one we have here is off of BizPac Review, and it says, tirade triggers Secret Service. One sentence crossed the line big time. And if you've been paying any attention, they had a big protest Saturday in Washington, D.C. of rights movement, or so they call themselves. I have my own opinion of what it should be called, but we won't go there. And there were several celebrities there that took part in this demonstration, and they had some, well, very vulgar things to say. Madonna was one, and this is how this article reads. Judging by the hysterical reaction of liberal protesters in cities all over the country on Saturday, one would think Donald Trump and his evil minions plan on rounding up every woman, minority, and immigrant in the United States for immediate deportation or something. The fact that these folks, to their credit, mostly engaged in peaceful, unhindered protests actually serves to belie any fears they have. However, some rhetoric can cross the line, as was the case with Madonna, took center stage to express her outrage over the election of President Trump at what ended up being the world's largest combination of outdoor concert and crybaby snowflake pity party. In her angry, profanity-laced speech, the 58-year-old singer just might have crossed the line with one sentence. And that sentence is, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House. Madonna said, but she, quote, knows this won't change anything, unquote. And there is video of this if you'd like to pull this article up to take a look at this. It says there was a lot more anger, cussing, and foot stomping in Madonna's speech, but apparently that line, the one about blowing up the White House, may have gotten the Secret Service's attention, according to a report by Gateway Pundit. Reportedly, they are aware of Madonna's comments and plan to open an investigation. However, the U.S. Attorney's Office will decide whether or not to prosecute. This probably won't amount to any negative consequences for Madonna, but one wonders what would have happened if the roles had been reversed and the right-wing celebrity had said the exact same thing about the former President Obama. Of course, social media's reaction on the issue was glorious, and there is a bunch of tweets here in this. I'll pick a couple of them out. First one here says, so today Madonna threatened to blow up the White House at the hashtag Women's March. Where's the media outrage? This is a terroristic threat. And I'll scroll down through them a little bit. See, with the language Madonna was using today at hashtag Women's March on Washington, you'd think she was in concert or something. And there's a whole bunch more if you want to pull them up to. I was taught in school, and I'm sure a lot of other people were taught this as well, especially people from my era, that you do not threaten the President of the United States. And that would include the White House or his family. That is just not done. And if you do that, there will be dire consequences. Perhaps Madonna skipped school that day. The next article and final one in this episode is off of the PamelaGeller.com website, and it says 20 pro-Trump supporters killed after pro-Trump demo. And this this happened in another country, but nonetheless, they were Trump supporters. And it says, I'm sure the anti-Trumpers will consider such action in the States. They envy such savagery. Off the Mirror, it says 20 killed after pro-Trump demo leads to clashes with the police. Friday's rally in the Southern River State was organized by the indigenous people of Biafra, which wants Mr. Trump to support the creation of an independent my tongue's not working. Biafran state. The Biafrans were squashed by the Muslims when they tried to remove the yoke of Islamic tyranny back in 1967. Now they are being slaughtered for supporting Trump. And the article reads, Donald Trump rally massacre. 20 dead as violence erupts at pro-Trump event. Violent clashes between police and pro-Trump demonstrators have left 20 dead and 200 still missing, according to the activist group's organizers. Donald Trump supporters came to blows with police and as they were celebrating the Republicans' U.S. election win, with 65 people being arrested and dozens more killed, local reporters suggest. While female rights groups and left-wingers marched on Washington, from Southern River State in Nigeria held a rally of their own. But trouble flared when the indigenous people of Biafra came to blows with police officers as they marched through the streets waving American flags and shouting anti-Nigerian government slogans. A spokesman for the group claims 20 people are dead and 200 more are still missing. However, police deny these claims, saying there were no deaths and 65 arrests. Pro-Trump supporter, gosh, I don't know how to pronounce this, Ugachawu Chinwuba, at that, claimed lawyers are working to locate and release those arrested by police. Mr. Chinwobo said he supported the new American president because he wanted self-governance for his region, something the Nigerian government strongly opposes. Backing demonstrations in Nigeria were in sharp contrast to rallies taking place across the world. Of women's rights campaigners marched in solidarity against Donald Trump's perceived sexism. And there's some pictures in this if you want to pull it up and take a look at those, and a lot of comments. underneath it. So you're welcome to leisure. That's all I have in this episode, but there'll be one more episode to follow. If you like what we're doing here, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not done that yet. There's a little bell beside that subscription button, and if you click that, a little box pops up. You check the box, and you'll get email messages every time I put a show up. That way, you'll stay informed. See you in the next one.